Hi guys, I just want to put a little disclaimer at the front of this video. If you don't know what you're doing and you don't have the tools to follow the steps that I'm outlining in this video, please, if you don't have the confidence, don't damage your own gas cap. That we're doing some invasive things in this video, so please proceed at your own risk. And I'm not responsible for any damage that you might be making to your own gas cap. Use some common sense. Also want to give a shout out to Keith Lundholm down in Tennessee at New Vintage Automotive, and he has recently also put out an Opel GT gas cap video, so check his out. I'll put the link in the description or at the end of the video. Hopefully we've got some good resources here for gas cap restoration for the future. Hey everybody. Today we're going to talk about restoring or repairing the Opel GT gas cap. Now some of you have got decent caps of your own. Some of you might be looking for an Opel GT gas cap. And they do come up for sale on eBay once in a while. Not really as much as they used to, like everything else. But you can, find a couple a month that pop up from time to time. And they're in what I would consider, most of them are in decent to poor shape. Some are in good shape. If you can find one in really good shape, it's going to demand, obviously, some more money. This one is my brother's, and he bought it on eBay, and we're going to try to get it working for him again and do some restorative services to it. Take it all apart. We're going to grease it. Probably try to do something with the finish work on that cover. The key cylinder cover right here. This plate here with the logo on it is in pretty bad shape. I don't know how well you can see it there, but it's got cracks in the chrome pretty badly. The good thing is the logo on it doesn't look too bad. I mean, it's got some blown out spots here, and here. But we're going to see what we can't do to make those look better as well. Now normally when you buy one of these things, the one thing you want to know is if you don't really care about its locking functionality, if you're going to buy one, you want to ask the question, make sure it's unlocked already. If you buy one that's locked, it's not going to be much good to you. What's going to happen is it's just going to spin, and you're not going to be able to turn the cap off the filler neck, or put it on for that matter. So, when you buy one of these, be careful. Make sure you get one that's already unlocked, if you don't care about it locking or not. Because if it's unlocked, you can twist it on, twist it off, and if you're happy with what it looks like, then by all means go for it. If you find out that that it is locked, you're not going to be able to just use it. You're going to have to do some restorative stuff to it in order to just get it usable. So, if you're going to buy one for your GT and, you don't care if it locks or not, make sure you buy one that's unlocked already. We'll talk a little bit about the operation of them, but I want to get into mainly the restoration of it and get it working. Like I said, we're going to take it apart and grease everything and see if we can't make it work a lot better. This particular one, too, I could not fit a blank key in it. I think it's got a key already broken off in it. So, we might want to see about, see if we could get that key out of there, that broken part. And if so, we might be able to use it to cut a new one. So, here's a couple of your options. If you happen to have an Opel GT gas cap and you would like it to work, if you would like to be able to lock it, and you believe the mechanisms are working fine, in other words, like on this one, that you can feel that it does have the locking mechanism in place. If you have one of these gas caps that you move it around and sometimes it spins and sometimes it doesn't, you've got some internal damage there that you're not going to be able to recover. I do have an engineering fix for that, but for the most people, if it's intermittent, lock or unlock, yeah, there's something I'll show you later. There's some internal damage that you just probably won't be able to fix. But if it's working fine and it feels like that's locked properly and it never comes unlocked, and you would like to have a key made for it or get a key for it, You got a couple of options. The first one is to go through everything that I'm going to show you here on how to take it apart and getting that key cylinder out of there so that you can maybe take it to a locksmith and have it rekeyed. The easier thing to do, and what I would recommend, is if you're, especially if your gas cap's in really good condition, don't take it all apart. Get a hold of Keith Lundholm down at New Vintage Auto in Tennessee. I can give you a link to his web address. I'll put it in the description. But Keith is a well-known Opel restorer in the community, and he can help you out. He has, I think, a copy of every gas cap key they made and can make keys and has all the codes for them. And so it'd be very easy just to ship off your gas cap to him, let him figure out which key it is, and make you a set of keys. And that's probably the easiest and best thing to do without being invasive to your cap. The other thing would be to, as I'm going to show you, to disassemble the cap and get the lock cylinder out of it and take it to somebody. And so, we're gonna investigate that. We're gonna see how bad this locking cap is and see how hard it is to get it out. So the first thing you want to do is you want to try to take the snap ring out. So these all have a big snap ring on the bottom that's holding it all together. There is a spring in here and it's under tension. So you want to make sure you try to compress this outer sleeve so that the things don't go flying, right? What I usually like to do is try to compress it by grabbing it here in a vise with some protection, just to hold that down until I get that snap ring out. So we're going to stick it in here right now in the vise and see if we can't compress it enough to get that snap ring out without damaging it. You don't want to use a lot of pressure. It's not a really strong spring, but there we go. As soon as you can see it start flexing a little bit. Then of course you'll want to use your snap ring pliers and get that snap ring out by putting it in the holes here. There you go. And of course you can see that it comes out pretty easy. Now keep track of your parts. Now as we undo this, that center collar, as you can see, will pop right out of there. Alright, we got our first piece off. I'm just making up the names of these parts as I go because I don't know that anywhere has outlined what they are. I'm calling this the outer collar. This outer collar, it looks like it's a brass color, but I don't believe it is brass. Most of this cap, I believe, is made of, or at least the outer portions of it are made of pot metal, which is just really a combination of materials of junk, low melting point materials like manganese and zinc and some aluminum, tin, lead, those kind of things. They formed them in all kinds of shapes. And then of course you got a spring in here for tension. There's a small ring in here that is actually responsible for gripping the filler neck. And then you've got this inner shaft, or excuse me, this I don't like I said, I'm going to make this stuff up as I go. I'll call it the inner collar, okay? This inner collar that is locked in there. Now, somebody, as you could see, I don't know how well you could see this, but somebody has done a number on this, and it's gouged out on the edges. Someone has stuck a screwdriver in here and has tried to pry this out, really not knowing how it's put together. So we're going to try to take that out of there. We're going to use, they're never meant to come apart, okay? They're made to snap together at the factory, and you didn't bother them again. We're going to get this apart with some heat because there's something in here that's holding it, and it's made of plastic, and so we can melt it right out of there and take that apart. But just for a little history lesson or a little show and tell, let me show you what this looks like off of the cap. Hang on a second, because I do have one already apart. So here we got the center shaft, and here's that outer or the inner collar. Now this one I've damaged. I actually cut the end of it off because I was experimenting with something, so it's pretty much usable. But as you can see, and I don't know how well you can see, inside there's a slot. You see that slot there at the bottom of the shaft? There's a corresponding slot inside the inner collar here, you can see. And what goes in there is a plastic ring that's split in the middle. And once it's put on, once these snap together and the slots line up, it locks it in place and won't ever come out again. And so what you got to do is you got to apply enough heat around the center to melt that plastic ring, and then this should pull apart. So we're going to do that next. So for this next part, you want to get all your tools and stuff together ahead of time, because you don't want to have have this thing heated up and then not have what you need to get it apart. And you don't really want to heat this very long, okay? Because as I said, this is like a pot metal, and so if you get it too hot, these other metals may start melting on you. You don't want to do that, and it doesn't take a lot of heat to do it. So what I usually use for this is I have a MAP gas. You could probably use propane, but I've got MAP gas here. Propane would probably be a little safer because it's not quite as hot. A MAP gas torch that I'm going to use to heat this thing up. To pull them apart, I use a pair of channel locks just to grab onto that shaft and pull it off. But then also, it's important to have protection. I use welding gloves to hold this thing because it's going to get really hot. So you want some really thick gloves because once you get it hot, you're going to have to grab it and you're going to have to use those channel locks or something to pull that center off of there. So let me get suited up here and we'll go into it here and see what we can make this do. Alright, and so we're just going to go around the base of it, way down at the base, spin it around a little bit. Really just want to get that inner shaft hot enough that that plastic ring gets melty. Usually you see it start smoking a little, it's probably enough. I'm starting to see smoke, so we'll turn this off, grab the channel locks, twisting and pivoting is the ticket. Alright, so now we've got that thing loose, and we're going to take it off slowly because there is a small ring in the top of this that you don't want to lose. Ease it out of there, and there we go. Bingo. We have had a little bit of melting on the shaft here from this. Actually, I don't know if that was me. I think it was somebody else trying to fry this thing open. Yeah, somebody's done a number on this. This was not from me. Somebody has, in their prying on the edge of this thing, they've used heat and melted it, and they've actually caused some problems under here where things have melted on them. We'll have to grind that stuff off and get it looking better than that. Don't know why, but yeah, that's what happens. You don't know what you're doing. I've never seen one like this before, and unfortunately I don't have spares of these, particularly this part, so we're just gonna have to make do and get it looking the best we can. Now you could see a little bit that shaft, you can't see it, that washer in here. You could see how it's in there kind of, but it's melted off. Can you see that? Let me grab a screwdriver. Sorry about that. So you can probably see the little plastic ring right here. It's all nice and stringy because we melted it. Now here's that other piece I was telling you about. There's a little bitty washer on top of that shaft. You can barely see it. So we're gonna take that off. I don't know how hot this thing is. Take that off, put it aside, try to put that back on later. Now, this one is blown out. I think what the people did, now that I'm looking at it, what I think they did is they heated it up and melted this so that it wouldn't turn. See there? That's what they did. They melted it. It's possible they had it apart. I'm not sure. They could have had it apart, I suppose. But it looks to me like they melted it so that they would have these little nubs hanging down where they could lock into one of these things. Wow. Never seen that before. Never seen that before. So just a few pieces in here we need to be mindful of. There is a small piece here that's not too bad. A little spring-loaded, what I call a detent pin right here. It's got a spring in it, and it's just a little ball. We'll see if we can get that out of there. There you go. Maybe you can see that. I don't know. It's just a little, very small piece of metal with a spring hanging out the back of it. We're going to put that aside for now. Now, what we're going to see here next is that this cap is in bad shape. Let me pause a little, see if I can cool this down so I can handle it again. Okay, let's talk about the problems here. This cap has problems. It's going to need the engineering fix, and let me show you what I mean by that. So here's a parts cap that I've got. This is what's supposed to happen inside the cap. Right here is the locking key, right here. You see how that's spring-loaded? Goes in and out? That spring-loaded key fits into one of the slots in the sides of, let's see if I can get a good picture of it here. Inside here, I don't know how well you can see it with the lighting we've got, but inside here there are slots that run up and down the sides on either side, and that locking pin hooks into one of these slots and keeps it from spinning. Okay, when the key is turned into the unlock position, this shaft is out. The shaft is out like this and intersects with the outer locking ring and causes the cap to lock into place. So when it's unlocked, this whole thing spins at once and comes off. Let me show you the back side of this good cap. So right here we've got the shaft with the key in it, and it looks fine. If you turn around and look at the back side, it's all smooth, right? Not a problem. That's the way it's supposed to look. This one, here you could see we have the locking mechanism here, but the other side is blown out. It's not smooth. It's opened up. As a matter of fact, you can see the spring in there. Most of the time the spring shoots out and it just grinds up in the works. So we're going to have to take that out, and we're going to have to figure out how to make this work without the spring. And again, I have a method for that, but we'll have to make a part for it. Anyway, let's see if we can get this out of here, and I'll come right back. Okay, so this isn't too bad. I was able to just pull this little part of a spring out. Okay, the next thing we need to do is we need to take the lock cylinder out of there. And the way you do that, I'm missing some power here for some reason. There we go. The way you do that is, if you look really closely, underneath the lock key shaft, there's a small set screw right there. A little regular screwdriver set screw. I don't know why you can see that. You need a very small screwdriver to do it. We're just going to take that and take that little bitty set screw out. It's like a 2.5 millimeter screw with a dog end on it. Very small. Don't lose it. Because as of yet, I haven't found a good source other than China to actually get this, and I'm not sure if I'd even get it. Oh boy, you can't really see that. Very small, very small. Let's put that aside for sure. Now, we take this open. We should be able to get this lock cylinder out with a little trying. Here it's coming. Come on, you. Here it comes. There, it's out. Oh no. I can see right now it's broken off here too. This cap's seen a hard life. I'm hoping we'll just be able to fix it. You see how that's busted on the end there? It's supposed to be round and it's broken off. Somebody may have been in here before me. we'll see. It does appear that there's a key stuck in it. We'll see if we can get that out later. So now that that's out, let's see if we can push this shaft the rest of the way out. There it comes. Alright. There's the key out. Here's what the key looks like. Let me see if I can get it in my hand where you can see it. Again, it's got a big gap. It's got a hole in the back for the spring, which is shot. And really it just pushes in and out like this. And the bottom of the lock cylinder has a little nub on the end of it. And it's offset. It's not right in the middle. So that normally the spring holds it in the unlocked position. So it pushes the key into the side of the shaft and locks the two pieces together so you can twist it off and on. The act of the key actually spins this and opposes the spring like this, pushing it back into the center shaft and unlocking it. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but so that'll become important later when we go to make the new piece to making it work. But set those aside for a moment, and it looks like I'm running out of juice. Let me see if I can do for that. Okay, so I did a little more digging down into the cap and found the piece that's broken off here. That little half moon shape, can you see that? That's busted off, was actually down inside the cap still. So what I might do, because I don't really have the parts to fix this with, it would need a new lock cylinder. I'm going to try to epoxy this. Now it's not going to be perfect for this particular lock, and honestly I don't think my brother's going to actually use this. He just had it sitting on a shelf for looks. So I'm going to try to epoxy this. The right thing to do would be to find another lock cylinder. I don't have another one. I have this one that I had years ago that's been drilled out. It's too far gone and there's nothing I can do with it. So anybody that has parts for these, like broken ones that you don't want anymore, that there may be, you might have parts for them or anything like that, you know, I'd be interested in those just so I could fix more caps and keep them going. But for now, I think I'm going to try to epoxy this. But right now, I think we need to try to see if we can't take that key out of there. I can see it's there. Let's see if by prying on the bottom of it, if we can get it to emerge. We don't want to hurt the, you know, the pins in there or anything. I'm going to need something sharp to get in there to pry that out. Let me take a quick peek over here. It doesn't look like there's too much in my drawer here that would work, but let's try, let's see, this tiny screwdriver here might do it. I can see it in there and I can see it wanting to move, but here it is. I can feel it a little bit. Wow. Yes. You know what? I'm going to douse that with a little bit of WD-40 and let it sit for a couple minutes and then try it again. Okay. That's been soaking in there for a little while. I found yet another small tool that might do the trick. See if I could pry him out of there. Come on. Ah, boy. Yeah, I can see why they had trouble with this. Ah, here it comes. Ho, 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 ho. Look at that. You can start to see the edge of it coming out. Now, let's see if we can pull that sucker out of there. I got my Leatherman tool here. Aha! Look at that. Otherwise, completely intact. I did notice that while this was down in there, that all the pins were in the right position. So I think we've got enough here that we might, I'm not positive, but we might just be able to get a locksmith, there, to cut that and make that lock cylinder work again. Anyway, we'll put that aside. That's a key little piece of this puzzle. Now you can see all the pins are sticking out like they're supposed to. And if I had a blank key, which I do, we can fit that right in there and it's fine. Alright, looking good. We'll try to fix that. So now that we've got that done, where's the rest of the cap? Here it is. It just really needs a good cleaning. Needs cleaned out on the inside. I use a little carb cleaner and some other things for that. It needs a good cleaning on the outside. The next order of business is this key inside here. Like I said, I'm going to have to engineer a new method for making this key stock work. I have a complete write-up on this process on opelgt.com. I'll put the link in the description on how to create a new key. But I'm basically going to make a key like this one, and I'm going to make it with a much smaller slot in it, so that what happens is the bottom of this, the bottom of the key cylinder, that little nub on the end, is what pushes that key back and forth. And there's a lot of play in there. I don't know if you could see that, but you can see there's a ton of play there, because the spring is supposed to push it this way, and as you spin the lock cylinder, it just opposes the spring and pushes it back. Okay, and so what we're going to do is make that slot only big enough for this little shaft here that's sticking out. That's, again, it's off-centered. If I make it just big enough for that, then the act of this thing spinning will move it back and forth. It won't need the spring. The only difference is, or the only caveat is, that you have to rotate the cap to a certain position before you'd be able to, you know, lock it or unlock it back. It'll make more sense once I get into it, but I will need to make a new one of those, and I have some key stock just for that. I'm not going to bore you with the whole process by which I made this. The new one, it'll be done with a lot of grinding on a piece of key stock, and after that I'll come back and show you what I came up with. Oh, and just so you know, this is key stock. It's really just a square piece of steel. I think it's zinc plated. You can usually get this at hardware stores, anywhere, and it has to be cut down. This is a 1/4 inch. It's going to have to be shaved down and cut quite a bit to make it this size. But that's what we're going to be doing here next. Okay, I've got my key stock made, and as you can see, I've got it made here in the vise, and it looks pretty close to the original one, just for size comparison. I may need to grind the tip of it off just a little bit. But the important thing here is now I've cut this initial line with the hacksaw to line up to the back of the key. That's the one closest to this hole where the spring would go. Okay, so this line here is what we're trying to duplicate. So you make the first cut back there, and then instead of making the groove as wide as this, we're only going to make it as wide as this nub. Maybe just a little bit wider, okay? So that way, remember I said, that way as the nub turns, it will control the key rather than letting the spring do part of the work, all right? So, let's take this away. I need to figure out how big to make this. So I'm just going to put this here and try to make a mark where I think it should be. I think it should be right there. Right there. You can barely see that mark. That'll make it close enough. Alright. Now we'll just use this hacksaw and see if we can't duplicate it. If I put my finger on the mark, we'll get it started this way, and then we'll use the die grinder to cut out the material in the middle. I'm not going to do this, otherwise the whole table's going to jiggle and you with it, and I'm liable to lose you off the table. I'll be right back. Okay, there it is. You can see it next to the other one. It's not the prettiest. It would have been better had I had the correct size key stock, but I don't know if you can buy it in exactly that size. It's like 6 millimeters. And I've made this gap a little smaller. Now, in actuality, I would have liked to have made it just a little bit smaller than that. I've tested it and it does work, but you can tell there's still a little bit of slop in there. You want a little, but you don't want quite that much. But it does work fine, so I think that's what's going to work for us. I'm going to stick it in here and see what happens, and we'll show you how it works. Okay, I've got it installed in here. I've got a drilled out lock cylinder that I've had for a while just for testing these kind of things. And you can see there's the key stock sticking out. When I turn it, it goes in and out. Can you see all that? So, which means it's working. So, next order of events is really just trying to get this thing all cleaned up. And then we're going to try to do something, or at least try to do something with the finish on this key cylinder cover here, and I think you'll be surprised we can get that looking pretty good. So let me get some supplies and we will see what we can do to clean this cap up. Usually I just use WD-40, or not WD-40, carbon choke cleaner. It's not going to come out perfect. Where's my brush? A couple of small brushes that I've used in the past. Oh, my small brushes are gone. Well, we'll have to use this bigger one. See what we could do. Actually, probably a rag would probably do the trick, and it is. You can see over the years there's an awful lot of crud that builds up in these things. I'm not sure if they used grease from the factory. I mean any kind of, I'm assuming they put some sort of lubricants in here. I'm sure going to put lubricants in there. One thing to know too, that if you ever decide that you want to take this cover off, there's a spring in here with some clips, round clips. You really can't find those exact things, or at least I've not been able to find those exact things to replace it with. I've gone to a local, I'm here in the Midwest, so I've gone to a local farm supply store, Rural King, and I found some clips that were similar. They're a little too deep. I've used it on one cap to fix it, and they turn out really tight. So you want to find one that doesn't have a lot of depth to it, that snaps pretty easily. This shaft here, you can't tell it very well. Actually, I don't have one out either. But the shaft here is attached to this, and it's got a groove in it. You can't really see it here, but there's a groove in the side of it. And that groove is what this clip, a push nut, clips onto. They're special made this way. And then there's like a washer and a spring behind them. Very hard to find shallow ones that snap that shallow, but it can be done with the ones I got. But like I said, they're very tight, not very nice to use. I would recommend looking a little farther, and if I find something, I may post where I found them. But if you can do without it, don't take that out. We're going to try to polish it up and clean it and sand it without taking it out. We'll do our best anyway. Last one I did, I took it out and was not real pleased. Alright, this is looking pretty good. Now some of these other pieces, let me get in there. With the, like this outer shaft collar, it's in really bad shape. We're just going to try to maybe use a Dremel tool and try to grind it down and try to get it looking better than it does, because like I said, somebody's put heat to it and kind of abused it pretty badly. Now we don't want that. Okay, it doesn't look so bad. we'll worry about this outside here soon, but this has got some crud on the outside here. I don't know what it is, but it's there we go, some kind of tar or something. Not uncommon either for them to have paint in them like that. Got blue paint down in here. People paint their cars for some reason. They don't take their gas cap off. I don't get it. They don't want paint down the gas, I guess. So they leave it on there. I don't know. I think I would tape it off with something. All right, looking pretty good. This thing, I'm gonna not bore you with this, but I'm gonna take it to a wire wheel. I'm gonna see if I can't smooth that edge out, get rid of these nipple things that they've stuck on there. See if it's possible to get this dent to work. That might be a problem. It's supposed to be a little dent that that this little thing rides in. Hopefully we can, oh boy, it's got something on it from my glove. Hopefully we can get that working again with all the heat they've done to it. But I'm going to try my best, but I'm not sure what it's going to take, so I'm not going to bore you with all that. But I'll go away and we'll come back and it'll look better. Like that. Ta-da! This is about the best I could get it, and it still looks pretty bad. I had to grind this back down smooth. This detent position hole here is actually a hole instead of a dent. There's supposed to be one over here, but they've melted it and it's filled in. It's pretty bad. You can see through this hole, and so I'm not sure if it's going to work properly or not. It probably will. Again, I'm going to recommend that he not use it, but in order for instruction purposes, I'm going to continue through this and show you how to make it functional. Normally, you wouldn't get stuff this bad. I can say positively that this is the worst cap I've ever worked on, the worst one I've ever seen, and that's because, you know, somebody just didn't know what they were doing, and they really did a number on it. If I had a lot of spare parts, it might be worthy of bringing back to, you know, 100% original, but I just don't have a ton of parts for these. I've used a lot of my parts fixing caps again, so we'll do the best that we can. And so that doesn't look too bad. Right now I'm going to try to dig out the remainder of that ring inside. It still has a section of it in there, and it's just not going to work. We got to get that thing out of there, otherwise we won't be able to put the new one in. There we go. There it is. Let's see about here. There's still another piece of it in here. Yeah, sure. What do you think? A smaller screwdriver would work? Oh, there we got it. I think that's it. Yeah. Let me try spray the inside of this out over the trash can. Actually, inside there might actually be the best part of it. Yeah, let me put something in there and see if I can't clean it out a little better. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. We put some grease in there and it'll make all the difference. So I'm a little concerned about what's happened to this. It's supposed to have two slight dents. You see these little bitty, on this one there's a slight dent and a slight dent. This one has a hole. Again, I don't know if this is salvageable. I'm not sure if this is going to cause it to lock. You know, this might just lock the thing. And so I may just take that out, keep it for parts, or maybe I can epoxy over this with some JB Weld or something. I don't know. I think if I leave that big hole there, this is just going to fall into it and never come out. It'll be like another lock mechanism, even with a bunch of grease. I don't know. Again, wish I had another one of these. This is rather warped too from the heat they've subjected it to. We'll see what we could do with it, but what I may do is just leave this out, and you know, when it's together it will just turn, and he will have to, you know, figure out where the position is where he can use the key. I usually use that when I've made this engineering change with this new key lock. Usually those dents are helpful in finding the sweet spot so you can turn the key all the way. Because the spring's not in there, you'll turn the key part way and it won't be able to go anywhere. You'll have to turn it to that sweet spot. You know, turn it to the sweet spot where that groove is, so you can, so you can unlock it all the way. The key will get stuck. That's one of the drawbacks to this little engineering change. But yeah, I may just do that, leave that out, and do the best we can with what we've got. And if I do that, then I think the next step is going to be we're going to, maybe clean that lock cylinder out a little bit. And then we'll get ready to do some treatment on this, and then we'll stick it all back together. So, what to do first? I think I'm going to clean out this lock cylinder with a little bit of the carb cleaner. Again, we'll end up greasing that up with a little bit of grease before we put the lock cylinder back in. What I could do is put this on the shelf, and then if I ever do get the parts that I need to fix it with permanently, I can get it back off of him and we can give it another overhaul and see what we can do there. That's looking pretty good. Again, normally this cap would just be going for the junk pile, because with this back blown out, there's really not much you can do without that engineering change. It's just trashed. It's very hard to fix that, and I've done it once with some, let's see, PUR 15 patch, but yeah, it's not the greatest solution to be done. Okay. So, next thing's next. Let's see if we can't shine this thing up. And as you can see, once again, it's really hard to see in here, but there's cracks all over it. And I'm going to do something crazy. Let me get set up. What I have here is a belt sander. And what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to sand the surface of this cap, hopefully without damaging the underside of it. We're just going to sand this and wiggle it around right here in this spot, hoping to get a lot of these scuffs out. You're also going to see the chrome come off of this, which is fine because we're going to buff it back up. The metal underneath does shine up like chrome if you sand it down enough. So we're going to start with this belt sander. It's got, I think 180 on it or something like that. We'll go to some finer grits and then polish it up, and it'll look night and day difference. As a matter of fact, I did this very thing to another cap. I'll show you a picture right here of what it looked like before. You can see that it had a lot of road rash in it. Looks like it fell off the car and got dragged down the road at some point in time. Did not look very good at all. I used this method on it. I did take it off the cap first, so this will be a little different. But I used this method, and as you can see, this is what it looks like today, and it is night and day different. It looks beautiful. So that's what we're going to try to do here. You see the before picture. Let's get to it, see what happens. I'm kind of rotating it a little bit and letting it flow a little bit like surfing. The reason I'm doing that is I'm trying to get the entire surface, it's cupped a little bit. Starting to get warm, so I'm going to give it a break. And as you can see, already there's like a, I think it's zinc or copper coating under there. That's underneath the chrome. So the chromes came off and part of the copper. We got to hit these edges a lot more. Coming along. Some things you won't be able to do, like these big gouges. We'll get them down a little bit, but they are what they are. We won't be able to get all of those off. And it's starting to come off. You don't want to gouge it, you don't want it to get too bad, you don't want to hold it in one spot. You do want it uniform, you want the copper color off of it. I think it's zinc, I don't know. Gives it kind of a brushed look too, it doesn't look too bad, but it's not going to be perfect, like I said. That logo is pretty trashed, but it'll be shiny. So let me put this thing away and then we'll turn on to the next step, which is some hand sanding with some finer grit papers. So unfortunately the next steps require some hand sanding. I've got some finer paper here. I think this is 220 and then I've got some 320 here that I'm going to use on it. So I want to use a flexible foam sanding block, because it is a concave surface, and you want to be able to get it uniformly sanded. So, and again, I'm going to try to do this without sanding the cap itself, because I don't want to mess the chrome up there as best I can anyway. It is a soft metal, so it really doesn't take a lot to get the grooves out of here, but it'll take a bit. And already, you know, you can see it's kind of brushed looking. But I've got a little bitty divot right here from the other sander. You want to make sure you get rid of that. There's some larger scratches from the earlier sanding, and so I want to keep scratching till I get rid of those. I'm just going to keep doing this till I get all these blemishes out. No sense in you watching all this, and then I'll switch to a different grit. Okay, here's what the cap looks like. You know, it's kind of got a brushed finish. I ended up using, let's see what I used. I used 220, then 320. I took it down to 600, and then 1500 and 2000 grit. I probably could have gone a lot more than that, But this is just a junk cap, and I'm not real worried about it. So we're going to take it right to the buffing wheel next and show you what it looks like after you get it all polished up. So first of all, we're going to use some of our polishing compound on the wheel and get it conditioned. And then we'll put the material to it. This buffing compound on there. And now the magic starts. How's that looking so far? I'm going to take this on the wheel that has no polishing compound on it, just to give it a nice buff. Just to do the best we can with it. Stop it. I apologize, I don't want to keep moving the camera back and forth, but the other side of the wheel just has got a cloth wheel on it with no compound on it for polishing. There you go. You might be thinking junk cap or not. You know, I might be able to put this on my car. It's kind of hard to show chrome on the camera here, but you could see, or at least a chrome looking finish. You could see that it is tons better. It actually looks almost new after all that buffing, and it looks really nice. Later we will try to color in that black a little better. Again, if the logo was good, it would have been phenomenal, but that logo is just too damaged to do anything with. But it definitely looks a lot better than it did. Alright, so now let's see about putting this back together. See what we want to do with that lock key. I don't know. And see if we can get it working again. Okay, yeah, we're back, and actually it's been many days. It's been several days since I spoke with you last. I had to get some supplies and get a few things to finish this with. We left off last, we had polished this on the polishing wheel, and it came out pretty good. I usually try to take, after I do it on the buffing wheel, I take a little bit of Mother's polish. and this is Mother's, oops, let me show you this, mag and aluminum polish. It is pretty good at shining up all kinds of different metals, especially if they're light metals. But we're just going to smear this on here and rub it in, and it will turn black. We're just going to do this over and over again. This white polish will turn black. Now, after you're doing this for a while, and after you do one of these caps this way with bare metal, I'll just say that you know, this isn't chrome, and depending on the, you know, the metals underneath and what they're made of, you know, it's probably going to be a little more susceptible to the elements than chrome would be, per se. So it's not going to be perfect. You're going to have to use some kind of treatment on it. So when you wax your car, just put a coat of wax on this cap. We're probably going to put a coat of wax on the end after I get it all polished up right. But you know, just going to have to protect it and pay a little more attention to it. But it's a whole lot better than what it was, and it'll look a lot better when we get done, and it'll be cheaper than re-chroming one, and really brings new life to an old cap, right? Alright, there we go. So we're going to let that dry for just a second here while I get another towel. You want to use a microfiber towel, and this one's kind of bad. And you could do this more and more, or less and less. I mean, I could have probably stayed here and done it quite a bit longer and got a better result, but to show you how it works, I'm just going to buff it off now. This microfiber cloth. And as you can see, that thing shines like crazy. Looks really nice. So I'm probably going to get this dirty handling it over and over again. But you know, pretty nice. It looks really nice compared to what it did before. It looks like chrome. Now later we're going to clean this up, and I'm probably going to paint that emblem in the middle too. I'm not going to do it right now, but what I usually do there is we just use a little black spray paint on it and acetone over the top, and it takes it right off, and we'll have a nice black logo under there too. Again, this one's kind of damaged in the logo area, so we couldn't get it perfect. It's going to be the best it could be. So what to do next? Okay, well, let me put away this mother's polish because we shouldn't need it anymore. So the next step in the process is going to be, let's work on, first of all, that mechanism underneath. You remember we needed a key to test this. I still have the engineering, let me get over here in the camera where you can see. I still have the engineering fix in it, installed in the cap, so we still have, you know, the key in there that I've made, and it moves in and out. So we had trouble with the key shaft, right, because we didn't have a key for it. That key was broken off in there. So I had a key made. It was very similar to some of the other keys that I have. It looks like Opel used a lot of the same codes. They put intermixed, you know, one side of the key codes to other side of the key codes, and made a lot of variation. I had some that were very close. So you can take it to a locksmith and have it redone, get a new key based on you know, the piece that I had is what happened. And you know, here's the key. So I got a key now that actually fits and turns and locks the thing and unlocks it. So as you can see too, underneath here, that lock, if I can get it on the camera here, is going in and out. You can see it right there. So the key's working. I have a key. I'll probably make another one, so I have a spare of that. But so, you know, very good progress. And of course the key cylinder comes out. We haven't put it in there yet permanently. And so the next things to do, now that we've got a key made, is, you know, work on the rest of it and put it together. So now this thing, you remember we looked at this previous, and I got it pretty cleaned up. So I couldn't have this hole in here that I had, so I used some JB Weld. Again, this is a junk cap. I don't know if he's ever going to use it, but I used some JB Weld in here. I was worried about it, holding up. As you remember from before, there's a little spring, just a little spring ball-shaped piece in the cap that rides on these little dents. And so, with it being a hole, I was afraid that it probably wouldn't hold up. And so I used a little PUR 15 patch on there along with the JB Weld. I don't know if it'll help. That stuff dries to rock hard. And I re-drilled the hole. Really just used my fingers and a drill bit and kind of drilled it out to where I have a dent again. On the other side, likewise, I figured out where that one should be, and I used a drill with the drill bit, and I re-tapped that dent right there, if you will. And so now we're going to test it out. So first of all, let me see if I can get my little spring. It goes back in this little bitty hole down here. And we'll grease all this up when we're done. So now we got this little dent in here that's spring loaded, if you can see that, sticking out. And we're going to see if we can get this to work. So now, I should be able to just place this in here. Oops, right now it's in the locked position. I think I'm going to unlock it just to make it easier. There we go. Keep that shaft in there. So we'll put this together. Alright. And turn it and see if we can get into those dents. Ah, you can hear that. It wants to stop right there. And if we turn it clear to the other side, clicked right there too, into our new hole. So I think that's going to work. It looks to me like that's going to work. Again, it's not perfect, but I think it's going to work. And hopefully it doesn't mess up that hole too much over time. I think once we put grease on here and get it really lubricated good, there's going to be a lot less friction, and that's going to hold up quite a bit longer. Let's do this though. I think we may have already did this, but again, since our engineering change is involved in this cap, you can't just unlock it and lock it. See, the key stops short, and that's because, again, with the engineering change, without the spring in there, this has to be rotated to one of those dent positions, like right there, and then we can do that, and it's locked, or unlocked, I should say. These two pieces are locked together, unlocking the cap, and so that's what we want. Let's try to take it back off. And now we're spinning free again. Let's turn it to the other dent position. Alright, see if it still works. Yep. Unlocked. And locked and spinning. Okay, it's working. That is good. That is very good. So now, I think we're almost to the point where we can start greasing and putting this back together. But we do have a few more parts to clean up. Again, I'm not going to go on camera and show me cleaning up these parts. Really, I plan on just using a wire wheel for the most part, maybe some solvents, see if I can get this cleaned up a little. So let me run over and hit some of these on the wire wheel and some solvents, and I'll be right back, and we'll see what it looks like. Get this cap back together. Okay, we're back, and as you can see, these pieces they look pretty good. Okay, they've cleaned up really nice. And again, I just used a wire wheel on most of it, just to knock off the crud that was there. So now we get to put this back together, and really it's a matter of greasing it and snapping it all back, putting things back together in the same order we removed them. So we're going to start by using some grease, and I don't know what I use. I just use wheel bearing grease. I feel that it is going to be strong enough to withstand whatever this cap's gonna put out. It's not going to be putting out as much. Obviously, it's not going to get the wear and tear that your axle would, nearly enough. So I think it's probably going to last a long time in this cap, and it's thicker too. I'm going to put a little bit on this thing first, just because I want it to be able to bounce up and down in there pretty well. So we're going to take a little and stuff it in the hole. Okay, and then we'll put this little spring pin back in the cap again. Don't want to lose that spring. All right, now is it jumping around? Yeah. Okay, now I want to put some inside of this because it's going to be rubbing on it. I don't want to just cake it in there, but mainly you want to get it on the bottom of this inner collar. So let's just grease this up pretty good. Put a little bit around the perimeter of it so we got a nice greasy surface there. And we want to put it inside as well. This is where that shaft goes, and so it's going to be spinning in there. You want it to be nice and greasy. Boy, it looks delicious, doesn't it? Now, I'm not going to grease the shaft because it's, it's already, it's going to get it from this. So, the next thing I want to do is wipe this stuff off my hands. I want to put a little grease on the locking key stock that we put in here. I've got it pre-installed here. We're going to take it back out for a minute and put a little grease on that. I know we're going to mess up our shiny cover here, but that's okay. And to do that, we got to take this out, and then we should be able to just push that thing out of there. Come on, you! There it comes. All right. So we're just going to put a little grease on this so that it's ready to go. And just take a little dip. It doesn't take much grease at all. There we go. And this should be able to fit back in just like this. Alright. Good little greasy pitch here. And then we're going to stick the key cylinder back in. You notice when you got that key in there, all the pins on the outside are flush with the shaft. That's how they work. Alright, we'll put this in the correct way. There is a little bitty, I don't know what you want to call it, but if you look, let me put this down for a moment. If you look in here, I don't know how well this is coming out on the camera, but right here there's a little cam, a little stop is what it is. And you have likewise on the cap, you have a similar cam in the center here. You've got a raised section, and this cam has to coincide with that raised section. It goes on this side, so it provides a stop for the key. So it goes in this direction. Now let's see, did I line it up right? Yeah. So we've got it, and the new key cylinder or key stock here, locking key shaft is coming out of there. So now that's in there. So the next thing we want to do is try to keep the key from lock cylinder from coming out. And if you remember, we have a very tiny set screw for that. And there he is. I'm going to have to get a very tiny screwdriver to put him back in there. If I can find my very tiny screwdriver. Here it is. And so that will actually that'll actually keep that key cylinder from falling out. And if you look at one of these other locks, here's the one that's been drilled out. Remember this? We had to fix this this ring around here because it was broke. That locking set screw will ride inside of this little groove. I know you can't see that. It'll go inside that groove and keep the cylinder from falling out. So let's put that in, and it'll be on this side. You don't want any grease on that, but if you get a little on there, it won't hurt anything. I have purchased some new ones as well. You can't find them just perfectly like this, but I think I can modify what I've got there. Alright, so that's going in, and we don't want to go too tight. So let's check the key out, see if it works still. And you can see it works fine, and now it just pulls out. Although I'm going to recommend to him that he kind of holds the lock cylinder when he pulls it in and out, because we do have that one glued piece, and it is possible that that's not as strong as we hope it is, you know. So So that should be locked in place. Let me see if I can tighten it a little more, if that makes a difference. I really don't want to damage anything. Yeah, I think that's working fine. All right, that's that. Now, there are some little nubs down here that this thing rides on. There's not only that ball, but there's a couple of nubs here. And so I'm going to grease them up a little bit too. Put a little grease on all these little surfaces where they meet, so that there's no problems later. Nice greasy. And I think I'm going to put a little on this shaft too. Why not? Okay. Now, what holds this whole thing together? Well, there's a piece that we melted out earlier with the torch. Plastic ring. So I've made these on the 3D printer. They're just plastic. I use PLA for this particular one. ABS would probably be better, but I haven't any trouble with them so far. But this is a new locking ring. We just had to design this because we don't really have a surviving one. And this will go inside of the collar, the inner collar here, this groove where we fished the old one out. If you remember, there's a groove in there. Now, I did make these a little too big. So, I do have to cut the ears off of this thing a little bit on either side. Otherwise, we'll never get it in there. So my next batch of these things, there, looks like a C, is going to have to be a little better. So we got to squeeze this enough to get it inside this little ring in here. So we're going to try that right now. See if we can get it in there. Okay. And I messed up our grease a little bit. There we go. Alright, once again, let's try to see if we can't, it's in there. See if we can't push this in. Ooh, look at that, went right on. Okay. Now, in order to get this down, it's probably going to be tight. Because keep in mind, there is a groove on the inner shaft as well that ring has to snap into. And so, it's not just going to go in gracefully, it's going to get stuck down here. So what I usually do is try to put some very soft cloth under it and try to press it or hammer it with a rubber mallet. So we're going to close this up, put this on here, get my rubber mallet and hammer that down, and it will get stuck. That'll be good. Alright. Alright. Took a little turn in the vise and it's working. You can feel the dent positions and it's not coming out because that ring is locked in there like it should. Alright, of course we've made a mess of the thing. It's going to be polished up again. Alright, so now with that in there and apparently working, we're going to put in the next part. So, next thing that goes in is this little ring. Okay, after the ring, the spring. And after the spring, the outer collar. Okay, now what holds that down? Well, obviously it's a spring clip. So I got to do this in the vise. I'm going to set you up here so you can see what I'm doing in the vise, and I'll come back. All right, and just like we did this before, I like using the vise to compress that outer collar down on that spring before I put on or remove the spring clip. There we go. Now we got a nice surface to do that with. So we're just going to get our spring pliers once again. And try to feed this spring clip on. Bingo. That should be all you need to do. There you go. It's back together and ready for action. Alright, we got one more thing to do to this. Actually two. Polish is one of them. But we also need a gasket for the inside of this. Okay, now for the inside of this, the gasket that, you know, it did not have one with it. It normally would have a cork gasket in there. And Gil Wesson sells a rubber one. Matter of fact, I had it around here a little while ago. I don't know what I did with it. Oh, it's underneath all this stuff. He makes or provides a rubber one, and they're about $2 from Opel GT Source, and you could use that perfectly well. I tend to have problems with these just because they're rubber and they cause friction. And so if these clips here are a little too tight, these little ears down here that interface with the filler cap, then this is going to cause friction. You're going to have trouble turning it because that rubber doesn't want to give. I think it should slide a little bit. And so one thing I've done is I've made my own gaskets out of cork. And so the way I did this was I 3D printed a model of a thick gasket that is exactly the right size we need. And so in doing that, I was really just after trying to use it as a template for cutting new gaskets. Okay, and so I got me some thin gasket material right here, and put it down on the gasket material and use this to cut out a perfect gasket. And so I think this will work out a lot better than maybe the rubber ones. So we're going to stick that in there right now. That'll be one of the last things needed, and it should fit perfectly, and it does. And then the last thing we need to do is polish this sucker back up a little bit because we got our greasy hands all over it, and then we'll come back and we'll test it out. So I'm not gonna show you grease or polishing this thing again. You've seen that, but we'll come back. Hang on. Okay, one thing that I almost forgot about. We need to paint that logo inside here so that it looks right. And I failed to mention that. I thought about it later. You normally do this probably before I put the thing together. So I've just masked this off. We're just going to take a little Fusion black gloss paint, and we're going to give it a hit here. Now what you want is you want to have a rag, not a rag really, a clean paper towel standing by that's been doused in acetone. You really want something with acetone on it. We don't want to leave it on this shiny surface. We really just want to get that logo in there. And we're just going to give it a light spray here. It isn't going to need a whole lot. Just a light spray. So I've masked off everything here. Alright. That looks pretty good. Alright. I will just use this acetone and wipe that surface right off of there. And as you can see, it does a really good job. I don't know how well you saw that, but I just wiped it with that acetone and it came right off. Okay. We'll let that dry a little bit, take that tape off, and then we'll be about ready to wrap this thing up. Well, here it is, folks. Here it is, folks. The finished gas cap, and I think it turned out pretty well. I think I probably would polish this a little more after the logo dries in there, and then I'd probably put some car wax on it to make it look good. So one thing we haven't done is tested it out with the key. So let's do that now. Right now, the cap is locked. All right, and so it spins freely. So we're going to take the key now. There are some scuffs here that I couldn't get out. Alright, so remember, in order to unlock it, that key's not going to turn with that engineering change unless we got it in one of the dent positions. There we go. Now, it is locked. It is perfectly locked and it works fantastic. So let's put that key back in there. Whoopsie. Again, unlock, or lock rather, and it spins. Spins freely like it should. Alright, I think we're going to call that a wrap for this video. Thanks for watching. Again, these are getting harder to find, and you know, getting a really good gas cap for your car is hard to do. And so, you know, in this way we can resurrect some of them, make them look fantastic, and get them functional again. So thanks for watching, and please like and subscribe.